Hi guys, in today's video, I'm going to teach you a very important concept that'll help you a lot when it comes to drawing. This is something very important to me. This is something very personal. It has helped bring fun and satisfaction when it comes to learning drawing. And you won't see it on any art channel out there, whether they're famous or whether they're small like me. This is something that I found from doing master studies, from just copying masters art that I like on Instagram, on Facebook. This concept, this idea is being comfortable with chaos. So what you have to learn if you want to break into the next level, if you want your drawings to improve, is that not everything in art is going to make sense. I find that out when I was doing master studies, usually from artists in the super sphere. So Kim Jong-gi, Peter Han, Karl Kopinski, South Korean artists, if you know what I'm talking about. Tom Vox as well. Is that what I found is that a great drawing consists of very good academical foundations. That is line work, structure, anatomy, gesture, a good grasp of light and dark, so values, and a portion of the abstract, the unknown, the irrational. It took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child, Pablo Picasso. If you want to improve your art and surprise yourself, this is an important prerequisite to what I'm about to teach you. This, of course, are those other than drawing a lot and kind of having it be the only thing you do with your life, but I digress. People find reasons to do something. People find ways to justify themselves doing something. A permission, an approval, a subliminal blessing from whoever parent or guardian they seek validation from when they are doing something or want to do something. When you were a child, new to this world, devoid of expectations, norms to confine you in, standards you need to uphold, behaviors you need to present to the adults, was there really something that existed that you needed to do, to have achieved, to have had, to follow, or do what it is that you were interested in? Think about it. Almost everything is fake. Almost all people are living by sets of rules that are embedded so deep in their minds that it limits them from doing things that they really want to do, especially those that they enjoy. I don't know, because laughing, having fun in your work, if not discouraged, was never encouraged, much worse, punished. I know a lot of people, a lot of households, where having fun is frowned upon, is looked down on by being rigid. Quote, having no clearance, having no gaps. A perfectly fitted engine will not work. Pistons must be allowed some play in the openings of the cylinder through which it passes, or it will not be able to move and show any life. The axles of the wheels in their sockets, and, in fact, all parts of the machine where life and movement are to occur, must have display. End quote. Harold Speed. This is the main issue that I want to talk to you about. That is still within the scope of art that, if fixed, will help you a lot as an artist, as it did mine. But the example I gave is one that is bordering more on societal matters. So we'll get back to the quote. Picasso, having trained classically through the School of Fine Arts in Barcelona and in San Fernando Fine Art Royal Academy, additionally, with his father, has made him had very good grasp and technical ability of art fundamentals, which then allowed people to leave him alone, to be himself, to be a child, to paint like a child, to play like a child. If it were not for his technical abilities and renown, people would have mocked him. Not that it matters, but people wouldn't have left him alone to do his thing. But it doesn't have to be this way. What if I told you that there is a way in which you could draw freely, you could have fun in your work, you could enjoy, you could play within the bounds of your canvas of choosing, your medium of choosing, without having to practice art at a very young age? Because, let's be honest, most of us didn't have a father like Pablo Picasso that is an artist, that encourages his child to be an artist, because we live in a third world country and that is not a choice, or at least a well-known choice where money can be made. For example, the Philippines, we value more STEM degrees and careers, doing engineering, something in the mathematics field, in the academia, research field, more than creative stuff. And that's just how we've been. And this is an encouragement to all creatives out there that if you are very tense when drawing, that if you are having a lot of troubles letting go and just playing in your art, this is the video for you. And Pablo Picasso, this is an example of an artist where the right to draw freely, to express one's own thoughts and feelings, the right to invent new things and innovate the existing conditions of anything, to be able to play, sadly, is needed to be backed by one's skill, reputation, and achievement. Absurdity, but within context. But times have changed. Thanks to the convenience of technology and the democratization of knowledge from the internet, it doesn't have to be this way for a lot of people. The most common thing I see on a lot of artists' art is either of the two: the lack of fundamental ability or the lack of artistic expression, whereby the lack of the first is indicative of a lack in proper training and a strong reason for doing so, for pursuing art, and the latter of unnecessary tension and wrong way of looking at failure, hindering one's true expression. So, first, this is for the people that are struggling with the academic side of art, most commonly with anatomy, with colors, and with values. Uncanny drawings, unsatisfactory figures, being contained in, let's say, for example, one pose, one angle. The only fix for that is actually being interested. Yes, that's it. That's how simple it is. Being interested in becoming better at whatever it is that you want to be better at. Let's say, for example, drawing the arm properly, being able to draw the legs, because most people don't draw legs at all and only draw bust or portraits. And of course, this still comes up to what are your specific area of interests in art. So I'm not saying to learn it all, but I'm just saying, for example, if you want to create your own characters, it helps a lot if you're familiar with the human body. If you want to create your own environments, it helps a lot if you are familiar with perspective, comfortable with perspective. I'm not saying to be proficient, but familiar and comfortable. Okay, the first is being interested in it. The second is repetition. Being able to draw one subject is not enough. You must be able to repeatedly do it every single time you want to, and every single day. By deciding on doing art for life and not just a one-time thing or drawing in a whim, or by deciding on doing anything in general, keeping in mind that you'll do it for life will give you a much better outlook and leeway to fail a lot and not be so hard on yourself like most people are on themselves. They think that if they're not doing something on a very professional level at first, or if something is not effortless when they first do something, is that it's just not for them. But that's wrong, because when you finally discover all the ways you can fail, only then will you actually be able to succeed. And lastly, to get better at fundamentals of art is to have structure. While everybody has their own way of approaching learning, and there are but one path to the mountain, the one that I find the most helpful for me is to take one thing at a time. If you want to learn about a body, just practice drawing the body. And I know, a lot of you might ask, well, that's still vague. I know that it still sounds vague. And we can break it down to learning the mannequinization. We can break learning the body down to learn on drawing the gesture. We can break it down even still by learning the individual parts and wedging of the forms of the body, or even just using a single line, finding the line of action. But it all starts with picking one thing, and by doing that, an array of subsets will show up. So pick one and stick to it until you become comfortable enough to draw that what it is that you want, either from reference, if that's what you pick, or from imagination. Don't include clothes, don't include values, don't include colors, don't include creatures, don't include all other things except the one you decide on getting better at. Practice one thing at a time. You can follow this or don't. Basically, this is how I would approach learning art in general, and this is how I have been approaching art in general. Pick one thing to put all your focus to, and just commit. Okay, now, that is how to get better at the fundamentals, the academic side of art. Now let's go to the other side. The juicy stuff, the fun stuff, the expressive stuff, the artistic side of it. Before I tell you the 3 ways to become better artistically, you first need to know what is art, based on my personal bias. Yes, my personal bias. This is what I associate the meaning of art with. Don't worry, this is from the great artists of our history. Art is one of the 2 organs of human progress. By words, man interchanges thoughts. By the forms of art, he interchanges feelings. And this, with all men, not only of the present time, but also of the past and the future. It is natural for human beings to employ both these organs of inner communication, and therefore, the perversion of either of them must cause evil effects in the society in which it occurs. End quote. Art is a human activity consisting in this: that one man consciously, by means of certain external signs, hands on to others feelings he has lived through, and that other people are infected by these feelings and also experience them. Art begins when one person, with the object of joining another, or others to himself, in one and the same feeling, expresses that feeling by certain external indications. End quote. Leo Tolstoy. Quote, drawing is a desire to express individual emotion, to make the other fellow conscious of our inner feelings. Quote. End quote. Andrew Loomis. Art, quote, art is a merge of the conscious and the unconscious. End quote. John Cocteau. Okay, so art is essentially a means to communicate our feelings to another person. That's it. That's it. But I'd like to add my little interpretation of it. Art is the marriage between the conscious and the unconscious. It's your will, your commitment to it that binds them together. To be a good artist is to master in harmonizing this relationship together in different ways that is true to the expression of oneself. This is sacred and must be treated with reverence. Therefore, the perversion of art causes evil in the society in which it exists. I believe this is why NSFW art, degenerate art, furry art even, have such small markets yet pay very good. It is evil and it causes suffering, but it is still art and people like them, so we can't really do anything about it. If there's a huge demand and a small amount of artists are willing to provide the supply, then it doesn't matter if it's evil then, right? Because it pays the bills. So what's my point? My point is that not a lot of people go into learning art with the need of having to become better at it in their minds. Usually, it's just a very pleasurable delight that they rest in, that they partake in. Something that they can go and enjoy where it gives them a breathing space, a pause in their lives. However, for artists like you and me, aspiring professional artists, Students enrolled in art universities. Art can be a very limbo like endeavor that not many people are willing to spend the time on to untangle and find the pieces of the puzzle, and even less. People that have figured it out that are sharing what they have learned and what they did that made them figure it out. I'm kinda like the person between those two. Not that I am just enjoying art for the feeling that it brings, and not that I am also earning a living doing art. I'm kind of just a guy in the middle that has gotten a very small progress, enough to have the courage to share some of the things I did that has helped me become better. This is for artists that are just like me, just in the middle. So, what's the secret? Since you've gotten this far, I'll tell you what it is: honesty and meaning, starting small, fun, and lastly, commitment. That's all you need to know. First, it starts with the decision of why you want to do art in the first place. The stronger, the more honest, and the more personal the reason you create for this to be, the more likely you'll stick to it in the long run, which is what we want. Second, you start small. How small? Small enough that you know you could be doing more and are itching to do more. Yet, for the sake of building momentum and having it be sustainable in the long run, you spread it out and wait for the next day. At the beginning, start stupidly small and do it for at least 30 days. Okay, third, fun. Fun is being able to smile, have a laugh, or accumulate healthy pride from your work. When you're starting out, it might not be visible, but over time, when you make progress, it'll naturally introduce itself. Also, the achievement of sticking to something small for a decent amount of time will also bring this feeling of progress, which makes you feel proud of yourself. Not in a bad way, but in a I'm building something kind of way. And lastly, commitment. You will fail. You are bound to fail. Since you have decided to do art for the rest of your life, you have committed yourself to it to the end. This means that you are required to stick to it through its lows and highs, as it will come by itself as you progress along this pursuit. The trick is to regard them as the extra stuff from your actions, not the goal themselves. By you sticking to art and sticking to what small thing you said to yourself you will do, everything after that is unnecessary. The goal itself is the action, not the outcome. So, find your why, start small, have fun, and lastly, commit. As with the failures part, do enough of it, fail enough, that eventually you'll be comfortable with them enough and you'll be able to tolerate them better. When that happens, you're going to now be surprised about the good drawings that come out, which they will, absolutely. Now, that's when you start to break apart the actions you have been doing, for some unconsciously, and continuously improve the art that you are making consciously. There are things in art that is only attainable when one relents control and lets go. So, let go. Do not care about anything else besides the subject you are drawing. That is if you're using references. But if you're drawing from imagination, let go of the need to have a perceivable outcome. Let go. This is the part where you train yourself enough. You draw enough that you get desensitized with failure and trust the process enough to just draw and not expect anything out of it. This will lead you in a state of relaxation where time passes fast, ideas flow, you breathe properly, the ink becomes your exhalation, the pen becomes your mouth, and the art becomes life. This is where your art finally signals consciousness. This is where academic fundamentals blends in with the irrational, where the solid morphs with the abstract. And then, after what might seem minutes, will, when you look at it, at your phone's clock, will actually be hours. This is where I found out that one's art gets better when one just lets go. This is why we gravitate towards it when we're children, towards art. Because it's an activity meant for play. The only caveat is, when we're children, our sense of vision is very underdeveloped. When you progress as an artist, you really start to see. And with that ability to see properly with a trained eye, combined with a playfulness of a child, that is what creates great art. What makes time fly very fast, and that which one finds enjoyable. And also, this is just one that I've found recently, that most of art, most of it that is good, comes from a place of tragedy. It may be familial, it may be financial, it may be some kind of a mental health problem, whatever it is. I always notice that it comes from a place of being torn apart between two choices, in which choosing either one is not an option, but to create your own world that benefits the two, yet oftentimes makes the artist suffer, I notice, is what they tend to gravitate towards. Okay, back to the main point. How do you get better artistically? Well, the short answer for that, you convey genuine feeling. And how do you achieve that? By letting go, by relenting control, by surrender. When you quiet the mind, you are allowing your will to play out. This is perfectly seen as quote-unquote art style. Art style being the one characteristic that distinguishes one artist from another. An idiosyncratic thing you do that's blending with what you're copying and making it the feeling you are experiencing or experienced when you drew and wanted to experience again in the future. And that will is from your reason and your why to begin with, acting without the limits of our biases and ego. This is a little bit shady area, but when we quiet the mind, which is achievable in drawing, or any activity that it inhibits the senses or excites it, the will is free to act in itself. So, being good at art is actually your will being enacted on paper. If it looks satisfactory and to your standards, you can now judge that your why is strong enough. That's how you can measure that your reason is strong enough. If not, you have not stuck to it long enough to see the progress from your practice, or you have other things that you will except art. So when you want to get better at art, it has to be the only will, your will to get better at art. The last secret, if you want to get better at art, is this. This has to be the only thing you do and no other, because that's what it takes. So, to get better artistically, be honest and serious with your intentions by keeping in mind that you're going to do art for life. You'll naturally be less afraid of failures, or at least do enough of them that you get desensitized to actually being able to play.